Hello, I'm the Collector, and today I'll be accepting applications for a new assistant. Here at Version Exclusive, you're not just an expendable test subject, you're family. You will be in a safe and friendly environment where I can personally guarantee that you won't just end up with a completed Pokedex, but also with a completed purpose in life. So apply today!
Version Exclusive. We won't turn into a bug monster.
Hey, I'm back from the vacation. It wasn't that... Wait a minute. What was that?
Hey, Prime!
What Arceus' name was that?
How was your time in that sensory deprivation tank? Did you lose sense of self and go irreversibly insane?
Yeah, it was awful. Anyway, what was that? We won't turn you into a bug monster? Is that what our slogan is supposed to be? What the shell happened to Version Exclusive? A completed Pokedex is just a trade away.
Well, that didn't test too well with our audiences. Most people were more concerned about being turned into a disgusting bug monster, so we had to workshop it a bit. Anyways, now that you're back, we can get into today's topic.
Today's topic? You mean we actually survived you doing a video alone? Everything went okay? Oh, I guess that's good. I suppose I should take more vacations then, since you don't... Wait a minute, no, I take that back. You do need me. You need me all the time. I'm never leaving again.
Oh boy, I am looking forward to that. So today's topic is NPCs. You know, those things that teenagers call each other on the internet. Many of them are forgettable, no doubt. But what about the ones that aren't?
Hey, Vsauce.
Those are the ones that have piqued my interest.
Oh, I see. NPCs. There have obviously been tons of them that have appeared in the franchise through 9 generations, and some that are like, you know, always there. That guy who talks about how awesome technology is comes to mind. They always make sure he appears no matter what. I think we could probably go region by region today and pick out a few truly memorable NPCs to spotlight.
You know what? I think that's a swell idea. So I'll just start us off with Kanto. The first one of any significance that I have to talk about here is a woman that talks about how there needs to be a Pokemon that's pink with a floral pattern. I mean, come on, it's just such a popular thing to talk about nowadays since we have the Munna line, which fits the description perfectly.
Well, that is a really interesting one to bring up, and I'd like to make a point here. People like to act like this was some weird instance of Pokemon predicting the future. Well, I don't know how to break this to you folks that think that, but you can't predict the future you're directly in control of. That doesn't make any sense. This isn't some weird Simpsons situation. Game Freak just made a comment about a potential Pokemon and decided years later to make it come true. There's nothing else to it. Speaking of interesting NPCs, one I want to bring up is the gym guide you see every time you enter a gym. He's stuck around for several generations after this introduction, and honestly, I think he's pretty underrated. He can seriously help someone new to the franchise when they want to earn a gym badge. Like, it's pretty cool how he suggests using electric types against Misty, since most of your grass type options prior are poison type too. While her Pokemon don't actually have any psychic type moves, they're still psychic types, so it does sort of mean something that he'd push you towards a more advantageous type matchup despite having options.
Two other NPCs that are kind of prominent but deserve to be mentioned are both Professor Oak and Bill. Oak is the very first professor of the series, and no matter how cool the others are, none of them really compare to him in terms of the impact he's had on the series. Pokemon love him, other professors want to be him. And then there's Bill, my idol, the reason I do what I do. He created the Pokemon storage system, the time capsule, he got fused with the Pokemon, he collects them. He's just absolutely the GOAT in every sense of the word.
Oh, of course you love him so much, Judas!
There's also the old man that teaches you how to catch Pokemon for the very first time. Before he does that, he's a bit of a roadblock, preventing you from progressing any further since he hasn't had his morning coffee yet, which is English for being drunk and passed out in Japanese. And then you have the Magikarp salesman. 500 for a Pokemon that is seemingly useless at first is such a great gag, but if you tough it out, you get a ferocious, powerful Pokemon in Gyarados. And I think that covers everyone, so we can move on to oh wait, I forgot the best NPC of all, the I like shorts kid. He was really ahead of his time. They are comfy and easy to wear.
So in Johto, I think there's one guy in particular that jumps out at me, and it's that Pokeball maker Kurt. He's a super cool NPC who creates the single most important resource in the franchise, and he has a large amount of wares to choose from. I think people can often forget that there were Pokeballs that were only available in the second generation games, and it would take a while for them to be available everywhere. I don't just think of Kurt as a great NPC in Johto though, I also think of the kimono dancers as well. They were super mysterious and clearly more than just a couple of dancers hanging out around the region. Having to battle them was a cool experience too, taking on all those evolutions. It probably served as a nice introduction to Espeon and Umbreon for many players.
Speaking of first introduction, introductions, we're introduced to Janine in the Johto games. Now I know she's technically a Kanto character, but you don't get to see anything about her until you traverse through Johto, so I'm sticking by it. Janine is the daughter of Koga and takes over the Fuchsia City Gym in place of her father, who is now an Elite Four member. I just really like the continuity here, as I just find it really cool to see relatives of the characters I've come to know in the past, as well as seeing how things have changed after they've moved on to other things. On that note, how about I mention the Rocket executives, but more specifically, Ariana. These characters running the whole operation in Giovanni's absence is really cool, but there's definitely a caparaja in the room here. We know that Silver is Giovanni's son, but what about his mother? I mean, how could it not be Ariana? I don't know what goes on behind the scenes at Team Rocket, but it seems highly inappropriate, and I gotta say, not a big fan.
I want to hit on Usain as well real quick, a character I'm actually a bit of a fan of. He's sort of like Captain Ahab and Moby Dick, hunting down his white whale across Johto and Kanto. His dream is to find Suicune, and he definitely seems to feel a certain way about how the player character constantly runs into it instead of him. You battle him, of course, and eventually, when you capture Suicune on the Cerulean Cape, your story with him ends. But I think he's honestly someone worth remembering through the generations. How about someone even more memorable? Your mom! That wasn't a joke, I actually mean your mom, in the Johto games. She's constantly spending money, your money, and sending you things without your permission. It's absolutely depressing. Though, whenever I get depressed thinking about my mom spending my money, I think about Joey and his Rattata that's really strong. They really are easy to wear, he's right. I'm wearing a Rattata right now.
Moving on to Hoenn, we're keeping with the family ties and giving a huge shout out to Norman, as he's the only dad that we get to see as the protagonist. I'm sure all the other ones are working really late or are in another country, so it's really nice this one's job is so close to home.
And when you visit him at work, he even gives you a cool badge. So cool.
We also have Licia and Oras. Contests obviously existed before her, but she made them so much more appealing to me in the remakes. Her theme is honestly one of the best tracks in all of Pokemon, and I will fight anyone on this.
I'm glad you just talked about family stuff with Norman, because one of my favorite sets of NPCs in Hoenn are those win straits. I love challenging them and trying to get through their gauntlet. It was like an early attempt at dealing with the Elite Four. If you lose, you gotta try again. It was kinda cool to have to try and eliminate all 4 of them in a row, even if the item you get for doing it is kinda useless, at least for me in the way I played. Their story is even cool as a 5th member of their family can be battled in Victory Road later on named Vito. I also want to talk about the Pike Queen Lucy. She's very memorable for her design, definitely being inspired by Seviper, and she's also just such a cool character. She doesn't like losing and is very to the point and just, well, I'm a fan. Also, her facility? Well, it's the coolest looking one in any interpretation of the Battle Frontier, hands down.
You know what else is cool? Pokemon Bank. Something we've grown so accustomed to over the years, and it all started with Bridget and the Pokemon Box. It was a GameCube program that allowed trainers who got a copy of it the ability to store up to 1,500 Pokemon. It would then later evolve into Pokemon Bank, which upped the storage to 3,000. Bridget is the host of both of these programs and is just such a friendly face to see. Now we have Pokemon Home, which doubles the amount once again for a grand total of 6,000, but sadly she's not the researcher behind that. No, that is the totally rad Grand Oak. I'm not sure how or if we will ever see her again, but she definitely represents an important part of the Pokemon series regardless. Well, that went on a little bit longer than I thought, so here's a quick shout out to Gabby and Ty for being an interesting pair of characters. I absolutely loved getting interviewed by them.
Thank you for the Pokemon Storage System's history lesson there, Dex. I know that the people out there were super happy to hear about all of that. I want to hit out 2 final things here. The creepy old men in the Mauville Pokemon Center that tell you stories. Their stories are actually based on the amount of times you've done certain things in your playthrough, and it really makes you wonder, how do they know any of this? Again, creepy dudes that potentially are stalking you. But there is one guy we know who definitely stalks you. Scott in Emerald. He is especially a top tier NPC to me simply because it's so weird that he just shows up randomly, even when you know he's looking for good trainers, and that's really why. It's just like, yeah bro, congrats, you locked in on the dude that would eventually become Pokemon Champion, but stop following me around. I'll call the police.
So in Sinnoh, there are 2 characters that really stand out to me. First is this girl with Duroc in the Battle Frontier. Well, that's not just any this girl. No, that is in fact Caitlyn from Unova's Elite Four. I just think it's so cool she made an appearance in earlier games before her big step into being an elite trainer of another region. Now, the second character I want to talk about is Looker. I was always under the impression that people really liked his continued appearance throughout the series. Being a part of an international police organization and investigating the various evil teams just sounds so cool to me. They even seemed like they were building up to something bigger with him in Gen 6 and 7, but that kind of went radio silent during the 8th generation. I personally really want to see him make more appearances in future games, but I guess we'll just have to see on that one. And that is it for Sinnoh? I guess that one just didn't really stand out as much as the other regions. If you have any ones of significance, please let us know in the comments, but I really think that about does it for us.
God, are we talking about the best or just any significant NPC? Jeez. If we're just gonna let anyone in this video, we might as well talk about Imakuni from the Pokemon TCG game. Anyway, let's move into the Unova region, which is definitely filled with tons of NPCs. I mean, it's based off America, where one would say there are too many people. I'm actually a pretty big fan of Cedric Juniper in Black and White, being the father of the main professor of the region. It's very rare that you get to see an older relative of a professor, though it continues a trend that many games would follow where you do get to meet the family of your region's professor. Cedric serves as a reason to upgrade your Pokedex, which is his main claim to fame. I know that it isn't the most interesting reasoning, but just getting to have a second professor character is actually really cool.
2 professors? How about 2 brothers? We've got the conductors of the battle subway, Ingo and Emmett. Now I'll be real with you all here. I didn't partake in the battle subway a whole lot. But with Legends Arceus, these two got a whole lot more significance since then. And spoiler alert, Ingo gets teleported back in time to the Hisui region for seemingly no reason. His entire life just uprooted. When the inevitable Gen 5 remakes come out, it'll be really interesting to see if there's any connection with that game worked in. And it will especially be interesting to see how he was first taken to Hisui and if he was ever able to return. So segues are weird. Roxy is actually a really interesting NPC in that she appears to be the first character to have any kind of voice acting in the main series. In the Burbank City Gym, in English, she will just sing a song that spells out Pokemon, whereas in Japanese, she'll spell out Dogars, the Japanese name for coughing. Eat your heart out, peers.
One last person I think we can talk about for Black and White is Bryson, who just might be the most interesting NPC in Pokemon period. He retired from being a gym leader in the sequels and focused solely on acting. It's kind of funny because he basically retired from being an actor to be a gym leader. While he flops between the 2 careers, it actually shows the effects that Pokemon can have on a person. He decided to become a trainer at Alder's recommendation after his injuries as an actor, and then went back to being an actor because he wanted to promote good relationships between Pokemon and people after Team Plasma was initially defeated. He's just got so much depth to his character and past, and he's a nice guy to end the best NPCs of Unova with.
And we've got another short one here with Kalos. Let's start with Malva, as she has got a lot going on with her. She's a newscaster, an Elite Four member, a member of Team Flare. Once you face off against her in the Elite Four, she is not that fond of you for leading to the disbandment of her team, and I think that's pretty neat. A member of an evil team working their way up to the higher parts of Pokemon society. We also have Emma, the girl controlled by Xerosic in the post-game of X and Y, all tied in with Looker's quest of arresting the Team Flare scientist. I really don't have a lot to say about it other than I really did like it, and it added even more onto Looker, who I already liked. And lastly, while it's never been outright confirmed by the developers, we have the beauty Nova. She has dialogue speaking on how she was a black belt half a year ago, which gives the implication that she is a trans woman. I think many people would probably overlook it at first, but after the digging that some people have done to come to that conclusion, I really think she's an NPC that's absolutely worth mentioning.
Let's go! Kneecaps! It's time for the Alola region, and I want to lead off with this kid that screams about kneecaps and getting all the best need Pokemon on his team. He has a Grubbin, so he's starting in a weird place. But might I suggest a Kabutops? We've got the best knees. Or rather, they have the best knees. Oh, God. I'm becoming too comfortable in this body. Ugh. Anyway, how about we talk about my favorite friend character in the franchise, Lily. She's a great friend of the player character, and in the Ultra games, it's really nice watching her overcome the trials and tribulations of her fear of Pokemon and the bizarre family life she lives. There are literally dozens of NPCs in the franchise that have been friends to your player character, but for me, Lily is the best of them, so I felt like she needed to get brought up. Also, those people from the Ultra Recon Squad? Well, they've got some interesting designs going on. I mean, they're literally from another world. I mean, we've gone to another world before in the games, a dimension if you will, and the only thing we found was Giratina. It's worth bringing them up here in this video, I think.
A character I really like is definitely Ryuki. He's got this absolutely crazy design, so you would tend to lean towards thinking he might be a super important character. But no, he's just a guy that you can battle. Of course he's got some backstory, but I kinda like it that he's not a prominent character. He's just a wild-looking NPC, and sometimes that's okay to have. Maybe he'll make an appearance in future games, but for now, he's just rocking out in Alola. Moving on, I also need to mention Annabelle. I could have mentioned her during the Hoenn section, but her being just a frontier brain isn't that special. What is special is the fact that she fell through an ultra wormhole for a significant amount of time and then showed up on Pony Island 10 years prior to the events of Sun and Moon with most of her memories gone. She then began working for the International Police alongside Looker with the tasks of investigating and capturing the Ultra Beast. They do wrap up that mission and just kinda let her go sightseeing afterwards, but I think it's just kind of wild that they took this character from Gen 3 and gave her a whole new plotline and then just kinda didn't go too far with it. But I really do hope that changes in the future. There just has to be more to it than what we've been given. And then lastly, I want to give a shout out to Professor Burnett. I love the fact that they took this professor from the Dream Radar app and just made her a full-fledged character in the main series. Her relationship with Kukui is just so cute, and then seeing that in both the games and the anime was just so great for me, being the huge Burnett stan that I am. Oh, and how could I forget about the Masked Royale? I mean, he's just so mysterious. More importantly,
so let's talk about the final entry here, the wonderfully controversial region of Galar. They featured a ton of new NPCs, and honestly, the region as a whole still carries a bit of extremely fresh air when I think about it. I want to start with, well, we all have our waifus. Yeah, I said it. I said waifus. We all have them, and for me in Pokemon, it's all about Professor Sonia. She's a character that we get to see literally come into her own as an adult during our playthrough and eventually takes over as the new professor of the Galar region. I know I referenced families of professors earlier, but this took the cake in that discussion. Her orange hair and awesome fashion sense are enough to carry her as one of the top NPCs in the region. Oh, and speaking of hair and awesome fashion sense, I'll also highlight my favorite gag characters in the franchise, Swordward and Shieldbert. They look so ridiculous, and a lot of people actually don't care for them too much, but I think their stupid personalities and weird story make them incredibly memorable.
I think some really memorable characters are definitely in the DLC. Of course there's the likes of Clara and Avery, but I want to give more of a focus to Honey and Mustard from the Isle of Armor and Peony from the Crown Tundra. Mustard is an interesting one, as he is not just a former gym leader and champion of Galar, but he's also Leon's master. He's held the title of champion for longer than anyone else and also trained one of the greatest champions as well. Quite the resume, no? But I think the real surprise here is his wife. She doesn't seem like much at first, but she's actually a pretty tough trainer, and her battle just really caught me off guard. Then moving on to the Crown Tundra, we have Peony, who has a really similar story to Mustard in the sense that he is both a former gym leader and champion of the Galar region. But he is also the younger brother of Chairman Rose. Building upon the region and its lore with really interesting characters is exactly what Sword and Shield needed, and I would say the DLC definitely provided that. But the greatest character actually didn't come from the DLC. Oh, you know who I mean. It's Ball Guy! Here, take this moon ball and watch this silly dance!
Yeah, he's dancing! He looks stupid! Well, would you look at that? We made a really long video about NPCs. I guess that's what happens when we just don't talk about the best, and instead talk about all of them ever.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and be judged by you. I didn't list every bird keeper and chef out there, now did I? I could have talked about Hisui too, but you threatened me and prevented me from talking about the cool familial connections that they had with many other characters. You know what? That's it. I'm putting that tape out there. New assistant for me!
What? That's what you were making that video about? You want to find more people's lives to ruin? Alright, Collector Dexter. I'll be keeping that in mind. That's right, I called you by your full name. That's how you know I'm serious.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Collector Dexter, and you're the Prime Directive. And hopefully, they won't be seeing you next time.